Welcome to the Radio Revenue Podcast. Today, we are setting out on a really fascinating mission. We are going to unpack a massive, dense 111-page document.
Yeah, it's a beast of a filing.
It really is.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're looking at the official 2025 annual report, the Form 10-K filed with the SEC for a company called Dover Corporation. And our goal for this deep dive is to decode exactly how a 70-year-old, $8.1 billion industrial giant is quietly shaping the modern world as we know it.
Right, and simultaneously transforming itself from the inside out with artificial intelligence and clean energy.
Exactly.
It is an excellent case study in corporate longevity. You know, when you open up these official SEC filings for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2025, you usually brace yourself for incredibly dry financial tables and boilerplate risk disclosures.
Pages and pages of them.
Yeah, but what we have in this particular document is essentially a step-by-step blueprint for how a legacy-heavy manufacturer manages to stay relevant in an era defined by rapid, often ruthless technological disruption.
That is exactly why we selected this source material.
Yeah.
And for you listening right now, here is why this matters. You might not immediately recognize the name Dover.
No, it's not exactly a household name.
Right, it's not a flashy consumer-facing brand that advertises during the Super Bowl. But we can almost guarantee that you interact with Dover's technology multiple times a week.
If not every single day.
Yeah. Whether it's the barcode being scanned on your groceries, the massive refrigeration units keeping your food cold at the local supermarket, or even the clean energy and fuel dispensing systems powering the vehicles on your commute.
Dover is basically the invisible architect behind so much of our foundational daily infrastructure.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to really understand Dover's footprint, we need to map out the anatomy of this invisible giant first.
Let's do it.
So, based on the 2025 filing, we are analyzing a company with 24,000 employees scattered across the globe.
That's a massive workforce.
It is, and they divide their operations into 5 distinct major segments. First, you have engineered products, which handles highly technical hardware, everything from specialized aerospace components to heavy-duty vehicle repair lifts.
Okay, and the second?
Second is clean energy and fueling, which is focused on the infrastructure needed to move and store energy.
A third segment is imaging and identification, right?
Yeah.
Deals with product traceability, digital printing, and barcode technologies.
Exactly. Then fourth is pumps and process solutions. This handles highly engineered fluid transfer systems. You have to think of the massive pumps needed for midstream natural gas pipelines or sterile biopharma manufacturing.
Right. And finally, the fifth segment is climate and sustainability technologies, which designs and builds those commercial refrigeration and heating systems we just mentioned.
It is a sprawling portfolio. But navigating through the management discussion section of the report reveals a really structural pivot in their business model. They are not simply a hardware vendor anymore.
No, they really aren't. And that stood out as one of the most critical takeaways in the entire document for me. They have heavily transitioned to what the report officially designates as an equipment with aftermarket opportunity model.
Yeah.
They're basically moving away from that traditional industrial approach of just selling a massive, expensive piece of machinery and then walking away until the customer needs a new one a decade later.
Right. Approximately 40% of Dover's total $8.1 billion revenue now comes from recurring demand.
40%.
Yeah, that category includes replacement parts, continuous consumables, software subscriptions, and ongoing maintenance services. They are embedding themselves into the entire life cycle of the equipment,
Which generates highly predictable, stable revenue streams.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the classic razor and blades business model, but applied to multi-million-dollar heavy industry.
And it acts as a massive financial shock absorber.
Exactly. When the broader macroeconomy takes a downturn, capital expenditure budgets are the first things to get slashed. You know, companies stop buying brand new heavy machinery.
Natural.
But they absolutely still need to maintain, service, and upgrade the machines they already have running on the factory floor. That 40% recurring revenue keeps the lights on during economic winters.
What stands out to you when you look at how a company builds that kind of loyal, recurring customer base? What actually drives a business to stick with one specific fluid pump provider or refrigeration vendor for 2 decades instead of simply shopping around for a cheaper alternative?
Well, it really comes down to manufacturing high switching costs and operational integration. I mean, these are not off-the-shelf plug-and-play components.
Right, custom.
Highly engineered solutions that are completely critical to a customer's daily operations. If you are managing a sterile biopharmaceutical production line, you do not swap out your specialized fluid transfer system just to save a marginal amount of money.
The risk of contamination or downtime is just too catastrophic.
Exactly. You stick with the trusted partner whose equipment is already integrated into your workflow.
And speaking of that massive pile of recurring cash, that reliable income is exactly what is allowing them to bankroll their next big strategic moves. Dover has been putting billions of dollars in motion over the last couple of years.
They are actively trying to buy the future by selling off the past.
Yeah, the scale of their capital reallocation in 2024 and 2025 is substantial. Looking at the divestitures first, they sold off their Environmental Solutions Group, or ESG, for a staggering $2.0 billion.
Which is huge.
And they also sold their Distaco business for $675.9 million.
We have to view those moves through the lens of disciplined portfolio management. In corporate strategy, this is often referred to as pruning.
Trimming the branches.
Right. Dover is looking objectively at their subsidiaries and identifying businesses that, while perhaps profitable in a vacuum, have a limited runway for future value creation under the Dover umbrella.
So they're shedding assets in highly cyclical markets.
Or areas that are too capital-intensive with lower long-term margins.
So they generate almost $2.7 billion in cash by exiting those older, maybe slower growth industries.
Yeah.
But sitting on cash in a shifting economy is a liability, so they immediately deployed it.
Oh, absolutely.
In 2025 alone, the filings show they spent $665.3 million to acquire 4 new businesses.
And we should look closely at what they are actually acquiring with that money. The marquee purchase of that 2025 spending spree was a German company called Secora AG.
Which they bought for $608.4 million, right?
Yeah, Secora is a dominant player in precision measurement technologies for the wires, cables, and plastics industries.
And in the year prior, 2024, they spent $395.8 million to acquire the Marshall Excelsior Company.
Right, and that specific acquisition was designed to massively boost their capabilities in clean energy flow control. They are systematically trading their older industrial assets for the foundational components of tomorrow's infrastructure.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
The digital integration strategy.
Yes, because reading through this document, it becomes totally clear that Dover is no longer just a metal and motors hardware company. Buried in the operational details of the 10K, you find out they've established a dedicated innovation hub in Boston called Dover Digital Labs.
It's a completely different environment from a factory floor.
Exactly. It is a facility staffed by data scientists, software developers, and artificial intelligence engineers. They are actively injecting AI and cloud computing right into legacy industrial infrastructure.
It is a fundamental shift in how industrial value is created. To make this abstract strategy concrete, let's look at a specific real-world application detailed in the report.
Okay.
Inside their imaging and identification segment, there is a subsidiary called Systech. They recently rolled out a product called Art AI. It utilizes machine vision and machine learning algorithms to create a unique digital blueprint of packaging artwork.
That completely reframes how we think about traditional packaging. But how does that physically work on a supply chain level?
So the AI forensic analytics analyze the microscopic, inherently unique printing patterns and microvariations on just a standard cardboard package.
Even if 2 boxes look perfectly identical to the human eye.
Exactly. The machine vision registers the microscopic differences in the ink and cardboard fibers almost like a human fingerprint. It uses that data to detect counterfeiting and prevent unauthorized supply chain diversion.
So they are turning every single physical box into a highly secure, trackable digital asset without needing to embed expensive microchips into the cardboard itself.
It's brilliant.
It really is. And we see that same leap from analog to digital in their climate and sustainability segment. The report outlines how Dover Food Retail is deploying cloud-based software to completely digitize the life cycle of CO2 refrigeration solutions.
Which is a huge operational upgrade.
Right. When a major supermarket chain installs a massive, environmentally friendly CO2 cooling system, it is no longer just a standalone fridge. It is connected to the cloud.
Right. The proprietary software handles automated diagnostics, streamlines warranty management, and constantly monitors pressure control set points to dramatically reduce deployment and maintenance errors. What's fascinating here is how this digital layer fundamentally changes the competitive landscape. Dover is taking heavy industrial equipment and wrapping it in SOC 2 certified software and Internet of Things, or IoT, sensors.
For context, SOC 2 is a rigorous compliance standard. It ensures a technology service provider securely manages customer data to protect the organization's interests and privacy.
Which is critical. If you are a national grocery chain, you cannot afford to have hackers accessing your internal corporate network through a vulnerability in your supermarket's refrigeration software.
That would be a nightmare.
Precisely. By providing that secure, continuous stream of operational intelligence, Dover creates an entirely new layer of value. The customer isn't merely buying a piece of hardware.
They are buying an optimization service.
Yes, and this completely supercharges that razor and blades model we discussed. When the IoT sensors in a commercial fluid pump detect a slight vibration anomaly, the software can automatically diagnose the impending failure and proactively order the exact Dover-manufactured replacement part before the machine even breaks down.
It structurally locks the customer right into Dover's ecosystem,
Totally.
which perfectly positions them to ride the wave of some of the largest foundational market movements happening globally. The report dedicates significant space to how they are aligning their operations with two massive macro trends.
The exponential growth of data centers and the global transition toward clean energy.
Exactly. Let's look at the data centers first. In their Pumps and Process Solutions segment, they highlight substantial demand for something called liquid cooling of server racks and chips.
This is a direct, unavoidable consequence of the global artificial intelligence boom. Training and running advanced AI models requires unprecedented amounts of raw computing power.
And as a result, the newest generations of specialized microchips run incredibly hot.
Right. Traditional air conditioning systems blowing cold air through a server room are no longer physically capable of dissipating that level of heat.
The physics just don't work anymore.
They really don't. The industry is being forced to adopt advanced liquid thermal management systems, where engineered fluids are circulated directly to the server racks to absorb the heat.
And Dover is stepping right into this critical bottleneck, leveraging decades of deep expertise in specialty pumps, leak-free connectors, and fluid transfer systems.
They are supplying the physical vascular system that prevents the AI revolution from literally melting down.
And over in their clean energy and fueling segment, they are aggressively leaning into the infrastructure required to transition away from traditional fossil fuels.
Developing the highly specialized equipment required for the safe storage, transportation, and dispensing of hydrogen, liquefied natural gas, and electric vehicle charging stations.
They are essentially building the architectural backbone for the gas stations of the future.
But it is worth noting that they are applying these principles internally as well. The 10K explicitly outlines that Dover is adopting sustainable practices within their own global footprint.
Yeah, they have established formal, science-based targets to reduce their Scope 1 and Scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by the year 2030, measured against a 2019 baseline.
And adopting these targets is not just about corporate goodwill anymore. It has become a strict requirement for attracting capital from major long-term institutional investors.
So we have mapped out their portfolio strategy, their aggressive pivot into AI and IoT, and their alignment with global macro trends. Let's look at the actual financial scorecard to see if this strategy is working. How did all these maneuvers translate into the 2025 fiscal year results?
The numbers reported to the SEC are really robust.
We mentioned the $8.1 billion in consolidated revenue earlier, but it is important to note that represents a solid 4.5% organic increase from 2024.
And when you read the management discussion and analysis section, they attribute that revenue growth directly to the strong demand in those specific high-growth markets we just analyzed.
But perhaps more importantly, the report highlights their strategic pricing power. They successfully raised prices across their segments to offset inflationary material and labor costs, and their customer base absorbed those increases without migrating to competitors.
That pricing power is the ultimate real-world stress test for those high switching costs we mentioned earlier. If your product is easily replaceable, you cannot raise prices without losing market share.
As a result of this dynamic, Dover's gross profit margin actually increased by 160 basis points, bringing it to 39.8%, which is a massive leap in operational efficiency and profitability for an $8 billion heavy manufacturing business.
Absolutely.
They're also aggressively returning that capital to their shareholders. There is a statistic buried in the financial highlights that is remarkable in the modern corporate landscape.
The dividend streak.
Yes, Dover has increased its annual cash dividend every single year for 70 consecutive years.
A 7-decade streak of dividend growth through recessions, tech bubbles, and global crises.
On top of that, in November 2025, They initiated a $500 million accelerated share repurchase program, partnering with JP Morgan.
That is a significant move. An accelerated share repurchase, or ASR, is very different from a standard open market buyback program where a company slowly buys its own stock over time.
Right.
In an ASR, Dover gives JP Morgan a massive upfront lump sum of cash, $500 million in this case, in exchange for an immediate bulk delivery of Dover shares, which are then retired.
It is a very aggressive way to instantly reduce the number of outstanding shares, which typically boosts the earnings per share for the remaining investors.
It signals that management has supreme confidence in their current valuation and future cash flows.
But of course, no deep dive into a comprehensive SEC filing is complete without examining the risk factors section. This is the mandatory portion of the 10K, where corporate counsel requires the company to disclose every material threat that could potentially derail their operations.
This raises an important question regarding the hidden vulnerabilities of their aggressive digital transformation. The report explicitly highlights severe evolving cybersecurity risks.
As Dover embeds more artificial intelligence, remote monitoring capabilities, and cloud connectivity into industrial equipment spread across the globe, their digital attack surface expands exponentially.
Because they are no longer just protecting a corporate office building, they have to protect tens of thousands of individual internet-connected machines operating out in the wild.
Exactly. The 10K explicitly notes the escalating threat of state-sponsored hackers, sophisticated ransomware attacks, and the malicious use of AI by criminal organizations.
We are not just talking about the risk of a standard data breach where customer emails are stolen here. If a bad actor manages to hack into the cloud-based control system of a retail fueling network,
Or manipulates the thermal management software cooling an AI data center.
right, the real-world physical consequences could be devastating. The more connected the hardware becomes, the higher the security stakes.
The report also spends considerable time highlighting risks stemming from ongoing global supply chain constraints and a fierce escalating competition for skilled labor.
You cannot run a facility like Dover Digital Labs without top-tier software engineers, data scientists, and cybersecurity experts.
Suddenly, a 70-year-old industrial manufacturer is forced to compete directly with Silicon Valley big tech firms for the exact same talent pool.
The labor constraint is a very real bottleneck for this type of corporate evolution. Expanding their high-margin digital offerings requires specialized human capital that is expensive and highly sought after.
So what does this all mean? When you step back from the granular data and look at the entirety of this 111-page filing, Dover Corporation offers a masterclass in corporate survival. They are a prime example of how a legacy industrial manufacturer doesn't just survive, but actively thrives in the modern era.
Yeah, they accomplish this by ruthlessly pruning their portfolio of slow-growth assets, fully embracing software and artificial intelligence to lock in their customers, and meticulously aligning their physical products with massive, future-proof macro trends like data center cooling and the clean energy transition.
Exactly.
It is a highly effective narrative of adaptation. But to leave you with the final thought to mull over, let's look at the broader implications of that digital shift and the cybersecurity threat we just discussed. If an industrial giant like Dover successfully digitizes and connects millions of critical infrastructural components globally, from gas pumps to biopharma manufacturing to data center cooling, does the resulting interconnected efficiency actually create a single catastrophic point of failure for global supply chains in the event of a coordinated cyber warfare event? Are we trading physical resilience for digital efficiency?
It was a Revenue Radio podcast. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated with our latest analyses.